Well, joining us live from Israel now is the IDF's international spokesperson, Lieutenant Colonel Colonel Conricus. It's good to see you again, Jonathan. Thanks for your time on what's a busy evening once again for you. Just how far do you think...
Thank you. Good morning.
What percentage do you think in terms of Hamas targets have been taken out in Gaza, and how much more are left?
Thank you for having me. I'll answer the question, but I just have to say that I think you guys aren't getting what's going on here. If the coverage is about the situation in Gaza, and I haven't seen a single word said about the atrocities that Hamas did in Israeli communities, of murdered babies, women, children, and butchered civilians and elderly people in our communities, then I think that you're not looking at this story from where it began. I understand that you're focused on Gaza, but really, not a single word about our civilians that were butchered in their beds.
I'm just going to correct you there, Jonathan. I mean, that's just one item that you saw us play. Believe me, we've done a lot of hours worth of coverage on the atrocities that were committed in that particular kibbutz that you're talking about. So just to correct you there. And I do want to ask you about that.
Yeah, I'll answer the question. Definitely. I'm just, it is appalling. I'm looking at the reports here and hearing Israelis. It's simply unimaginable, the atrocities that Israelis have suffered. And if it's covered, great, I stand corrected. Let me answer the question. We have a very large target bank of military infrastructure in Gaza belonging to Hamas, and that is what we are striking. And the words of your correspondent that Israel has admitted that it is striking targets that may not be related to the military is false. I don't know what's that based on, but that is not true. We are striking military targets that are relevant to Hamas. It can be infrastructure that supports their activities, and it can be weapon storages or hideouts or places where they manufacture weapons. We are not striking anything that isn't related to Hamas and its military capabilities.
How much closer are you to a ground invasion now?
Well, as you reported correctly, more than 300,000 Israeli reservists have been called up. They are preparing, getting their gear ready, learning different missions and studying. Any military, your military, US, French, and British, would surely look at an assignment like the very densely populated area of Gaza as a challenging one, and not one to be taken lightly for ground activity and operations in close quarter. It is a very daunting task, especially knowing that Hamas has an underground city underneath the Gaza Strip, a complete and elaborate tunnel network with many booby traps, IEDs, and other parts of defensive infrastructure in place. And we know that when and if we will maneuver in those areas, it will be a slow, heavy, and cumbersome maneuver. That is not to say that that is not on the table. It is on the table, and we are preparing for a variety of tasks to be conducted.
How much does the fact that Hamas has got hostages now, how much does that complicate a ground invasion?
The complexity is, I think, unprecedented. Never before have we been in a situation where we have to balance or try to balance between the lives of many dozens of Israelis, most of them civilians, women, children, toddlers, babies, disabled persons, and even a Holocaust survivor, and achieving military goals in a campaign. It adds complexity, but the directive that we have been given by the government, is to make sure that Hamas doesn't have any military capabilities at the end of this war.
Okay. Just finally here, an earlier report indicating that the major power plant in Gaza is now out, and within the hospital itself, it's running out of supplies and food is getting low. What do you do about that?
Yeah, there's one issue about the supply that I think hasn't been talked about a lot. A lot of the supply infrastructure that is near the Erez crossing, the humanitarian crossing between Israel and Gaza, has been damaged. And that is also something that is affecting the existing supplies and what they have and what they don't have. We are aware of the reports coming out of the Gaza Strip and taking them into our military considerations. I think that it is very important to clarify here. What we are doing is applying military force against a military enemy. And if you, for a second, look at it from our perspective, you will clearly see that we cannot be expected to provide electricity, fuel, water, and other sustenance to the very same enemy that is, as we speak, firing rockets and sending terrorists across our border and just butchered 1,200 Israelis.
And just to the north, Jonathan, how concerned are you, and what are you doing at potential spillovers in Lebanon, in Syria, and perhaps even at the Rafah crossing with Egypt?
Yes, we are in a dynamic situation where there are 3 active fronts, as you said, Lebanon and Syria. There have been skirmishes the last 2 days. Anti-tank missiles have been fired by Hezbollah at our troops, 1 soldier wounded, and an incursion attempt was made yesterday. It was thwarted, and artillery fire was fired from Syria into Israel, also without significant damage. So it is very definitely dynamic. We are deployed there. We have added additional reserve troops and capabilities up north as well. Not as much as we have in southern Israel, but significant forces. And we are deployed, vigilant, and definitely hoping that our enemies will understand that it won't be in their interest to escalate the situation further and to escalate it into a 3 or 2 front war against Israel.
Okay. Jonathan Conricus, appreciate your time on a busy evening again for you, no doubt, but thanks for sharing some of your time with us.